Come on.
Welcome back inside the bunker. It is Wednesday, August 20th. As always, I'm Kevin Bump coming to you weekdays for BTO Media, talking football, and the preseason is coming towards an end now. So we have a load of topics. I think our most loaded show of these last 3 weeks doing just football. We've moved exclusively to that for the time being during the season. And the topics today are absolutely awesome. First, Daniel Jones starting in Indianapolis. I'm infatuated by it. I'm obsessed with it, and I've been thinking about it for 2 days. I should not be putting this much stock into the Daniel Jones conversation, but I absolutely am, and that's where we'll start. Micah Parsons. Adam Schefter dropped a big nugget yesterday with his thoughts on Parsons and the Cowboys, saying he thinks they're moving towards divorce. We will talk about that in the second segment. Then after that, the Saints and Kellen Moore are in a really interesting spot at quarterback. Kellen Moore, I think, has no idea who's going to start for him, and that's intriguing in itself. Spencer Rattler versus Tyler SHOUGH there in New Orleans. And then we go around the NFL with the Browns and Joe Flacco. They're carrying 4 quarterbacks. Do I think that'll stay during the regular season? How would I call the shots there in Cleveland? And also the Jets with some headlines. Aaron Glenn, some great comments yesterday that we'll go through. And also, the team is wide receiver hunting on the trade market, according to The Athletic. So we will address that, some possible targets. And then I want to just wrap up talking about preseason week 3 and potential cuts next week and what that cut day looks like. So the Daniel Jones conversation is a fascinating one. And we're at a point now with Jones where he is in his last leg. It's his last opportunity to really show that he's a starter. He got the big 4-year, $160 million contract from the Giants, and ever since then, it's just been a mess. He got cut after 2 years. They had the out after that second season. It was the first 2 were guaranteed, and now Jones spent half the season in Minnesota last year, and it's just been a messy time for him since winning that playoff game 3 years ago in Minnesota. But he lines up now to be the starter in Indianapolis, and this was never a competition. Jones versus Anthony Richardson was never a competition. It was always Daniel Jones. And you knew that when he got $14 million to go there and be a quarterback. You knew when Anthony Richardson made his bed in 2024 by coming off of the field early in the season on a critical down saying he needed a breather, that he was done. That's when his offensive linemen, his teammates, his coaches lost the respect that is required for you to be a starting quarterback. So what do? Ballard and Steichen probably cast a wide net of watching film, of reaching out to coaches around the league for these journeyman quarterbacks. And Jones was who they identified and put a $14 million price tag on. You look through Daniel Jones' career stats, turnover machine for the most part, and he is frequently injured. He's only played a full season one time. That was in 2022. And you look through the stats, that 2022 season where he won the playoff game is the only identifiable moment where Daniel Jones felt like a franchise quarterback. He produced the most in his rookie year, but he obviously looked the best in that first year under Brian Daboll. 15 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions. It's a very underwhelming franchise quarterback season, but a 92.5 rating, highest of his career, and he had a 67% completion percentage, and he went on the road and won a playoff game. But in other years, I mean, we're looking at a guy who's played 70 games, thrown 70 touchdowns, and gotten sacked 208 times in 70 games. He's going to go to Indianapolis where he has the best offensive line he's ever had, he has the best group of playmakers he's ever had, and he has a 1-year deal with a chance to maybe provide a long-term option for 3 or 4 years in a place where they just have been desperate for a guy to be there for 2 or 3 years and provide stability. Since Andrew Luck retired in 2018, they've had 7 starting quarterbacks in 8 different week 1s. Anthony Richardson is the only guy who started consecutive years in week 1. And that doesn't even tell the full story of their quarterback issues. You've had guys like Joe Flacco last year, like Nick Foles the year before that, starting games because there were no other good options on your roster. They've been in an awful spot, and they've gone through now their second head coach in Shane Steichen, who might be in a make or break year. Who knows? And the Colts are in a new direction with Daniel Jones. And for Anthony Richardson, I don't agree with the hating narrative against the Colts that you drafted a project at 4, which was absolutely true, but they gave up on him too early. Anthony Richardson has not been good. He has not even been on the field much. And when he's on the field, he's a quarterback who completes half of his passes. He's a quarterback who turns the ball over, does not put the ball in the end zone, and has not used the running ability that we expected from him. Richardson, in 11 games played in 2024, ran for 499 yards and 6 touchdowns. If you're going to pass at the rate he passes at, which last year was a 47% completion percentage, under 2,000 yards in 11 games, 8 touchdowns and 12 picks, your rushing ability has to be much better than what it's been. And it's not. And he also can't run them because he gets injured. So Richardson is a dead-end quarterback right now for Indianapolis. They clearly don't have the coaching staff to fit this guy's abilities and put it on the field and really work with him and make him great. That's not what they have in Indianapolis. So Richardson may end up somewhere else next year. The Rams, Vikings, place where great offensive coaches are able to take quarterbacks who got picked high and they're able to mold them into the quarterbacks that they become. And those are better players. Those are near franchise guys. McVay did it in about 6 weeks with Baker Mayfield. Kevin O'Connell did it last year with Sam Darnold. So these coaches around the league can do it. Shane Steichen, clearly not one of them. And Anthony Richardson just also might not be one of the guys with the ability, mentally or physically, maybe both, to get it done. When you walk off the field on a critical third down and say, I need a breather, but you're not injured, you just ran around a ton. I remember the play before it clearly. Ran around like crazy scrambling. And you're obviously gassed after that play, right? But man, the reaction from some of the former players in football, especially offensive linemen, there's no way he had respect in that locker room after walking off the field for a critical third down early in a season where you're a competitive football team. There's no way. And you look at the rest of this squad, it would have been a disservice to start Richardson again this year. Jones is not much better. This is not a speech here for me about how great Daniel Jones is. But the fact that Richardson did that last year, the fact that he has not produced, he has not lived up to the billing at all, you have not seen the guy you drafted from Florida, you're now at a point with Jones where it has to be him. And he's given you 1 year of tape where he is an excellent game manager in an offense that runs the ball well and a defense that plays well. And that's what Indianapolis is trying to capture this year. And Jones has better receivers than he's ever had. You have Downs, Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, and then you have Tyler Ward now at tight end, Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. You're playing behind a good offensive line that's proven themselves year after year. And you have a defense that's pretty good, not great, but we'll see if they take another step in this season. Indianapolis could be a very competitive team in the AFC South. Real quick to wrap up on the Colts. Every single team in the Chris Ballard era, every single team in the AFC South since Ballard's been the Colts GM has won the division twice. The Colts have not. This division is very competitive. The Colts have made the playoffs a few times in the Ballard era as a wild card, but the division is always up for grabs. Ballard might be in a make or break here as well because you have essentially new ownership with the passing of Jim Irsay. Now his daughters run the team. They might look to go in a different direction completely next offseason. I don't know what their wishes are, their plans are. But Chris Ballard's been there now for 2 head coaches and for 6 quarterbacks. And you can't keep blaming it on Andrew Luck retiring. You took the job assuming Luck would be your quarterback. Yeah, so did Frank Reich. But we can't keep blaming it now in 2025 on Andrew Luck's retirement. At some point in one of the weakest divisions in football, you have to be a team that rises up and has even just 1 year of good play. And besides the Phillip Rivers year, they've not been able to put that on the field. Maybe Daniel Jones does it for them this year. Maybe he does. Let's move on. Micah Parsons and the Cowboys, by far the most fascinating, highest build story of the episode. When you talk about high-profile guys, high-profile teams, this is obviously the just cream of the crop. Best pass rusher in football, top 3 guy, defensive player of the year candidate on the Dallas Cowboys, hates Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones won't give him a contract. The negotiations seem to have been kind of Bush League on the part of the Cowboys, but there's two sides to every story, and right now we only know the one that Parsons is putting out. Adam Schefter said yesterday that he thinks the two sides are heading towards a split. It's going to be a divorce here. But this is the key to it. This is the context. Schefter did not say in the next 3 weeks Parsons will be on a new team. Schefter said maybe something gets solved in the short term, but it doesn't sound like Parsons has any shot of finishing out his career in Dallas. Essentially, 3 or 4 years down the line, Parsons, who's going to be still in his prime, is likely playing elsewhere because the relationship is that poor. And this is a really monumental moment, I think, in Cowboys franchise history that we're living in, and it doesn't seem that way right now, especially because the reality is Parsons probably plays for them this year, maybe the year after that. Maybe he goes to free agency this offseason and Dallas leaves with nothing. Maybe he gets traded at the deadline because they're 2-3 games under 500 and Dallas sees the writing on the wall. You can't franchise tag him and go through this again, so let's trade him in the middle of a season and make him someone else's problem and get something in return. But the Cowboys have one of their greatest homegrown players of the 21st century, one of the greatest homegrown defenders in franchise history, and you can't get a deal done with him. And now he's at a point where he is publicly making your ownership and front office look awful. And they've done enough to make themselves look awful in past years, but when one of the league's top 20 players is doing it, it's a really bad look. It's a way worse look. Dallas needs to figure this out in the next couple of days because Jerry Jones likes to parade around and act like this deal's done. There's an extension done. He was talking about how when he bought the Cowboys, he bought them with a handshake. This is the most old school mindset ever. And I have a lot of respect for what Jerry Jones has done. I really don't want to sit here and just hate on him, but he doesn't deserve praise for the situation. But Jerry Jones said a few weeks ago about the Parsons extension, and nobody even took it seriously. He said, when I bought the Cowboys, it was a handshake agreement. Before we did the paperwork, I shook the hand and I owned the Cowboys. Once that handshake happened, I became the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. Then we had to do paperwork the next few days and figure it out. He said this about 2 weeks ago now, and he said it's the same thing with Parsons. The handshake's done. The agreement's done. They just have to finalize some paperwork. It's obviously not the case. He just said that to try and buy himself a few days. It's obviously not the case. Cowboys fans don't buy it. NFL fans don't buy it. And most importantly, Micah Parsons doesn't buy it, and neither does his agent. Parsons is a Northeast guy. He's a Philly guy. He has obviously built the rivalry with the Eagles the last few years, but that's his squad growing up. He'd never get traded to the Eagles. He would never get traded to Washington. Local squads for him. Never get traded to the Giants. But the Cowboys probably have to consider at least moving him right now. And I think if he is on the move, the Patriots have to be all in on Micah Parsons. If he's available, New England's the team that I'm looking at and saying they could absolutely use a young cornerstone player defensively. You have Christian Gonzalez. You did a good job in free agency adding veterans. Now let's get Micah Parsons in here. Because once you get Parsons, the rest becomes a lot easier. You don't have to worry about the first-round picks you gave up. You don't have to worry about the second-round picks you gave up, the young player you gave up, because you have a franchise cornerstone that you probably weren't landing in the draft with any of those picks, and his production is going to make you quickly forget about the fact that you're not going to be watching TV and making draft picks on April 28th of the following spring. Parsons is that great. He's a Hall of Fame guy. New England and also Washington would be the two teams, but Washington, again, it's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. New England should be all over it. And I said Green Bay the other day with Trey Hendrickson. Sure, Green Bay too. I think that would be a tougher trade, though. I don't know if Jerry Jones would be too keen on keeping Parsons on an NFC contender. I think New England makes a ton of sense, and they can get it done. They have the financial capital. They have the resources to make the move, and they have a chance now to thrust themselves from, I think, 7-8 win team, but really competitive in that nature, to then, okay, this team's probably going to win 10-plus games, be in a playoff spot, and probably be a little bit of a threat in that postseason round, because they have the young quarterback who should get a year better. They have good enough playmakers. They have a good enough head coach. They have a good enough offensive line. And now you have a great defense. So all of those factors are why I think Parsons to the Patriots would make a ton of sense. But again, I don't think it happens this year. I don't think Parsons gets moved this year. He either plays in Dallas or sits in Dallas. It just doesn't feel like there's a trade on the forefront coming this year. But down the road, absolutely. Parsons is not going to be a lifetime Cowboy. It's clearer than ever. Let's move on to the New Orleans Saints. I mean, completely different scenarios from all the other teams we're talking about. I picked the Saints to be the worst team in the National Football League this year with Kellen Moore in year one. I do not like the roster. I do not like the direction. And most importantly, I hate the quarterbacks, which is what we're going to talk about here. They have two guys in Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough that are competing for the job. And Rattler played last year, different coach now. You got to prove yourself again, even though did he really prove himself last year? Not sure. Last season for Rattler, he had 130 completions on 228 attempts. It's good for 57% completion, 1,300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Just didn't show up. It's just not an NFL quarterback, really, based on what we saw in college. He's just not. Kid peaked in high school. If you watch the show, QB1 or quarterback, whatever it was on Netflix, you know, he peaked in high school as a football player. He failed at Oklahoma, underwhelmed at South Carolina, ended up being a day 3 pick to the Saints. And now they have Tyler Shough, who is another really unique case. He was the biggest jaw drop pick of the draft. Second round, Saints get up and you're saying, okay, this is Shedeur Sanders. And they take Tyler Shough, who a lot of analysts were very high on as the second or third best quarterback in the draft. So in NFL circles, I don't think it was as big of a surprise as it was to us. But still, I was not totally pumped for the Saints when they took Tyler Shough. It's just a kid that is very old. He's 25. He struggled at Louisville, and he struggled in his entire college career. But he had a good draft process, and he rose up boards. And teams like the raw physical abilities that Shough showed on tape. Okay, if I'm Kellen Moore, I don't want to be in this decision. Like, Kellen Moore has no idea who's going to be the Saints starting quarterback, and I don't even blame him. I can't sit here and rip him because I wouldn't know either if it was Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough as my options. You really want to be the guy who puts the ball in one of their hands? I'd be livid that you couldn't get me a better option. The Saints could have signed this offseason Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Justin Fields. They could have at least been in on him, but they were totally set on getting Tyler Shough in the draft, I guess, and keeping Spencer Rattler. They didn't seem very interested, and I know they had the whole Derek Carr situation, but I think they knew pretty early on that there was a chance Carr didn't play. These other veterans went for very cheap deals with the exception of Fields. You could have had a lot of other guys here. You could have signed a lot of veteran backups. You could have acquired a lot of veteran backups through trade, and you had the chance to do it, and now you're stuck in this spot where there is absolutely no chance that you have a good quarterback this year. The outside shot is Tyler Shough halfway through the season shows competence as an NFL QB. But based on what we saw in college, he is an insanely massive project. You could have had a guy like Kenny Pickett, who would have had the familiarity with Kellen Moore. You could have had a real shot at being at least competent in a bad division. But instead, you're stuck with these two guys. Kellen Moore, just an awful job. I always said the Saints were the worst job in the league. Mickey Loomis has done a terrible job with the Saints in the last few years. They have given him a lifetime deal. He's been there since 2004 as the Saints general manager. He's obviously won a Super Bowl and done a very good job for the most part. I mean, how often did the Saints have bad teams? But since Drew Brees and since Sean Payton, who, listen, Mickey Loomis is responsible for, he's responsible it happened, that they had those guys, that they had such a great run. But it's the same thing I always talk about in baseball with Brian Cashman. How many times does a 2-decade-plus tenure in sports with the same organization actually really work out and not run its course? Loomis has totally ran its course, and they won't hire a new general manager. There were rumors at the time that Aaron Glenn who the Saints wanted. He was clearly the Saints' first option. He was with the Saints under Sean Payton as the cornerbacks coach, a popular coach with the Saints, played a year with the Saints. He was allegedly interested in that job to the point where he might have taken it over the Jets job. And his requirement to them was, I want to pick my own GM. And the Jets let him do that. And we'll see if it works out. But it's at a point where people don't want to really work for Loomis, and you had to take Kellen Moore on and hire him because he was your best option, but he was your only option. And you had to wait till the Super Bowl ended, and they got this slow jump on the whole process of the offseason, it seemed. And now, again, sitting there with Tyler Shough and Spencer Rattler, you really couldn't feel worse about their chances this year. And if you're in the market for Cade Klubnik or in the market for Garrett Nussmeier, who's right in your backyard there at LSU, if you're looking at Arch Manning, okay, then this might work out. But this is a mess for Kellen Moore in year one as an NFL head coach. You could not have been given a worse slate of quarterbacks to choose from. Just couldn't. Speaking of bad quarterbacks, Browns are in kind of a similar spot, but they signed the veteran. They drafted 2 guys, and they also acquired Kenny Pickett. So they were in a bit of a better situation, I'd say, for Kevin Stefanski. You have a guy in Joe Flacco who you had success with just 2 years ago, and he could give you a little bit of that spark again. However, I do think that the perception of the Browns quarterback room right now is very unique and very controversial. I have so many things to bring up here. First of all, Flacco's the oldest starting quarterback in the league after Aaron Rodgers. He's not nearly the quarterback he once was. He looked awful at many times last year in Indianapolis. He's looked awful at many times over the last 5 or 6 years in the league, except for that stint with Cleveland. They drafted Sanders in the 5th round, which always was going to be a big talking point all summer. That's one of the main reasons, as we know, why teams avoided Sanders in the draft. And he's looked good in the one preseason outing. He looked good in camp, but he's getting a lot of scout team reps. He's getting a lot of third team reps. And Gabriel also has looked pretty good. Injured for a little bit this summer. Also has looked pretty good. Kenny Pickett feels like the odd man out. If you want to hold 3 quarterbacks, I'd trade Pickett. You could end up getting a team like the Saints or a team like the Jets, who don't really have a backup. We'll talk about them next, but you can end up finding a team around the league that needs a backup quarterback or needs a veteran that might start for them. The Patriots could use a backup right now. Josh Dobbs has looked horrendous. So Kenny Pickett is definitely the odd man out for me. Flacco would be my starter. It always seemed to be the case. Gabriel would be my 2/Sanders. I really don't care how you stack them behind Flacco. But Pickett feels like a dead end anyways. His development seems to be non-existent. And I don't know what you're trying to get there. I don't know how he's looked in practice. I haven't been at Browns practice. I don't know if he's been better than Gabriel or Sanders. But when your quarterback room is Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, and Sanders, I mean, the only one worse than you is Rattler and Shough. The only quarterback room I have less confidence and optimism in is New Orleans. This is a weird year for Cleveland, too. This feels like a make or break for Kevin Stefanski, right? 2-time coach of the year, a guy who's gotten to the playoffs with 2 different quarterbacks now. He's won a playoff game with Baker Mayfield. They almost beat the Chiefs and went to the AFC title game with Baker Mayfield. That was obviously a huge miscalculation by Cleveland, getting rid of him during that OBJ saga. And the failures, Mayfield wasn't great there, but man, Mayfield has made a heck of a career after Cleveland. And now, with Deshaun Watson still on your payroll, he's not going to play this year. He's out for the season. I don't even know if he's present. I don't think he's present at all in Cleveland. I think he's basically off the team. They have 5 quarterbacks on their active payroll. Deshaun Watson's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. Then Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, and Sanders. Watson's out for the year. I'd get rid of Pickett. But we'll see what they do next week in cut week. We'll talk about cuts in a moment. First, I want to discuss Aaron Glenn, Jets head coach, making some comments yesterday that were really interesting. I'll let you take a watch and a listen here. This is in regards to Justin Fields. He's asked if Fields' ability to go downfield is concerning, or just basically what he thinks of it, and if he hears the criticisms about Fields. So I'll play the clips right now.
It's clear you guys want to run the ball.
Yep.
That's going to be very much part of your DNA. Obviously, it's very much a passing league. Is there any concern about your ability to go downfield and whatnot?
Who says it's a passing league?
Isn't it a passing league? Isn't that kind of...
The team that won the Super Bowl, what were they in passing? 29th.
Yeah.
What were they in running? First.
Defense, too, obviously. But...
Well, we talked about offense.
I like Glenn's response here. He's absolutely loaded up to defend his starting quarterback. And Glenn has been no nonsense in the press conferences. We've seen that all summer. We saw it a few times he went on the podium in Detroit. It's not a shock when you know his personality even a little bit. But the Jets have a quarterback here who really can't throw the ball. And that's very obvious. And Glenn is immediately ready with the receipts of the Eagles' Super Bowl last year. Granted, no context because the Eagles were 29th in passing and 32nd in pass attempts. So, they just didn't need to throw. The blue team's out early running. But that does make them a rushing team still. It's not like Buffalo where they're dropping back every play with Allen, or it's not like LA where everything's throwing. KC too, even though they've gone run heavy the last few years. So Philadelphia was a great case study on is it really a passing league? But I think we'd all kind of agree it is. But he has to defend his quarterback here. They know what they're doing with Fields. They understand what they're doing with Fields. It's a 1-year contract, essentially. A chance for a second year. If he blows you away this year, you get him on good value in year 2. But it's a 1-year deal. They wanted to get their own guy in here. Fields was the best option. And they think they can really pound the rock with him this season with a good stable of running backs and a young blue chip offensive line. They're hoping that they can do that. And I think that Glenn is fully aware of everything that's going on in his organization. I think he runs the front office too. And he is the strategist behind all of this. And he made sure to defend his quarterback there. So I like that. I like the comment from him. And I thought it needed to be addressed by the coach because Fields gets a lot of criticism and a lot of it's warranted. But he's thrown, I think, 10 passes in the preseason and he's getting absolutely ripped because 2 of them were just completely abysmal, inexcusable. I'd say 3 of them actually on that second drive against the Giants last week. So Glenn comes into his defense and basically says, this is our quarterback. You don't really know what you're talking about. We have a plan here. And we're going to stick up for him because he's our guy. And that's fine. That's what the coach should do. They're also wide receiver hunting. Diana Rossini from The Athletic said that they're one of the teams in the trade market who are really monitoring the wide receiver position. The name I'd look at is Alec Pierce with the Colts. He's a guy that I think is a chance to get cut next week. He would definitely give the Jets a little bit of a boost. Malachi Corley was a 3rd-round pick next year. He's probably getting cut. Josh Reynolds right now projects to be their wide receiver 2. Arian Smith, who was a 4th-round pick this year, projects to be their wide receiver 3 along with Alan Lazard. It's a really bad group after Garrett Wilson. You don't need to go get Terry McLaurin. They shouldn't because, once again, you're not going to throw the ball like crazy with Fields, but you're going to want to have a second guy who's definitely a top 3 guy. Alec Pierce is a top 3 guy for me. He's a wide receiver 3, and the Colts have so many playmakers that Pierce seems like he'd be an easy casualty for them at the wide receiver position. You save a couple bucks there. They can probably trade him for a good day 3 pick, and the Jets are a team that should be in on that, a player like that. I don't think that they should go for the scraps either when players get cut next week because when you look at the player cuts, the Jets are not going to be the appealing team for wide receivers. They're going to be a run-heavy team with a quarterback who doesn't get the ball to his wide receiver 2. The Jets need to probably go out and get a wide receiver 2 via trade because I don't know if you can appeal to a free agent who got released and is looking to make a career in the National Football League. They'd go to a team like Kansas City where Rashee Rice is probably going to be suspended, where they've had injuries and turnstiles at the wide receiver position. You'd want to go to a squad like that or New England where they're looking for more guys with Drake May because I don't think the Jets are a totally appealing option. I would not want to go to the Jets if I was a wide receiver 2 trying to prove myself or a wide receiver 4 trying to prove myself in the league after getting cut, getting thrust into a second wide receiver spot. Yeah, that sounds great in theory. The quarterback's not going to throw me the ball and they're not going to throw the ball as an offense. So why would I want to go there? The cut deadline is next week, and it's the last thing I wanted to talk about today. Teams are gonna have to cut down after the preseason week 3. That's just the nature of the league. Got to cut about 40 guys in total to get to the regular season. Teams come in with 90. You get 53 guys on your roster. 47 dress every week, and the group of cuts this year is intriguing. The one name I'm really watching now, after reading a lot yesterday about him, it was not on my radar. Kyle Duggar in New England, who just got a 4-year, $58 million contract last offseason, was probably the last great Belichick pick. Second-round safety, Division II guy, and Belichick jumped for him. Everybody on draft night's like, who the heck is that? He's a Pro Bowl safety. And last year, saw some injury, saw some struggles, has been slower because of his injuries the last 2 seasons. And to my understanding, Vrabel's got him playing deep into the fourth quarter. So that has cut written all over it to me. They spent a lot of money in the secondary this year. Vrabel is a good safeties guy. His safety track record, wherever he's been, is very strong. It's very positive. It's not a huge emphasis in his defense, but he does have a track record of getting safeties to play well, and the Patriots have a stable of good players in their secondary. So you already have Gonzalez. You signed Carlton Davis. Those are your corners. You have a good group up front in the front 7, and I think Vrabel is probably going to cut Duggar here or trade Duggar along with Eli Wolf, the GM. They're going to make a move here and get rid of Duggar. It sounds like he's done in New England. I don't think the new coaching staff favors him very much because, once again, he's playing late in fourth quarter games. He's not getting reps with the first team in practice. And when you're making that much money at the safety position, it's about, $16 million a year? Maybe a little more than that. No, a little less than that, excuse me. It's probably like $14 million a year for Duggar. That is really telling that you're not getting those first team reps. So that's going to wrap it today for me. Cut deadlines next week. We'll talk about more guys on Monday that we think are going to get dropped after this weekend's preseason finales. It's a very interesting week in the NFL. And then we have the bye week and then week 1. It's coming up really fast. Good luck in your fantasy drafts this week. I'll be talking about mine on Monday as well. And I don't want to reveal too much of my stuff because I know I got some boys who watch the show in the league, so I don't want to reveal my picks, reveal my hand, but we'll talk more fantasy Monday, and I want to hear what you guys did as well in the comments on Instagram and TikTok, and also on YouTube here. Remember, you can watch The Bunker on YouTube, listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can check out No Good Takes, Giuseppe Oliveri this week. Mic'd Up with Michael Merlo. He's got an episode dropping today, talking Mets, talking a little bit of football. And then we also did the Burrows yesterday. New episode. We'll have another one on Friday. Big Yankees win last night. Big series coming up tomorrow. It starts against Boston at home. 4-game set. They're now in the top wildcard spot. So we'll discuss baseball throughout the week. Football here as always. Appreciate you listening, and I will see you in the next one.